Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? This is Jeff from BKJmacTV, and this is the official BKJmac podcast experience. And this episode, season 2, episode 19, we're talking about the Netflix series, the Dahmer series, the 10-episode series on Netflix. Right now, the series, somehow, I don't know why, it's still relatively popular on the platform. It's generated a large amount of views. I guess that's good for the bosses at Netflix. But at the end of the day, it just does not bring back the victims that guy Dahmer killed from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. This guy Dahmer was a psychopath, a complete psychopath, and he had a shitty father who basically didn't want to deal with him, and a mother who saw the warning signs and just ran away from him. I'm not saying this to feel sorry for that bastard, but let's be honest, he was a sick bastard, and had that cop pulled him over at the age of 18, and this is from one of the episodes, and found the body bag in the car, he would have been locked up, and that would never, all those things would have never happened. But again, it shows police incompetence. So this episode is not to glorify Dahmer and what he did in American culture and how heinous it was. This is to show about the victims. I'm here to talk about the victims and the incompetence of the police in Milwaukee and what they did and what they did not do to stop this piece of garbage. They had opportunities, countless opportunities, to stop this guy, and they chose to look the other way. They didn't do anything. And the reason why was because, let's be honest, the guy was white. The guy got away with it because he was white. When he was pulled over for speeding and drinking, in one of the episodes, a cop pulled him over, looked at his license plate, didn't even choose to run it. He just said, I'm gonna give you a warning, you're 18, turn back, I never want to see you on my road again. If that driver was white, if that driver was black, best to believe he would have told, and he was drinking, best to believe that cop would have told him to get out of the car, and he would have searched the car. He would have so-called used his so-called probable cause to search the car. Let's be honest. That's what it is. And it was a lot of racism in that series. It was disgusting. It was grotesque. The police, the mayor, the police chief, the police union, they failed the gay black community. They failed it in epic proportions. It was horrible. They didn't care. In Milwaukee, in that area of Milwaukee where Dahmer was living, he knew by staying in that area, he knew that he was less likely to be investigated by the cops, because the cops, who are mostly white, did not care about the black residents that lived in that neighborhood. They didn't care. There were so many egregious, sick things that Dahmer did to his victims. His next door neighbor, Glenda, had to live and hear those sounds, that had to smell those things from her vent every time that creep job killed another victim. And every time she called the police, the police said, oh, we're on our way, and they chose not to come. Every time Dahmer killed somebody And she called the police. She called the police again. The police never came. I'm gonna say it now. 911 was a joke, and in some cases it's still a joke. Now, this series right here is an indictment on America and its racism towards the black community, particularly the black gay community. What the black gay community had to endure in the 80s and the early 90s was horrendous. It was sad, it was grotesque, and it was wrong, and it was exploited on so many different levels. And Dahmer, he saw it, and he knew he was going to get away with it because he knew, again, that the cops were not going to investigate. Case in point, a 14-year-old Asian kid, God rest his soul, he was lured into an apartment by this creep job, Dahmer. He was given a pill and a drink, and he was dazed. Dude drilled him in his head, drilled a screw into his head, and he left the apartment, and then to get more alcohol, and then this guy comes and leaves. The kid leaves bravely. Miss Glenda finds him, calls the cops. Cops come over, and the cops, and this is embarrassing, the cops see the boy who's hurt and is in pain, and the cops takes the story of this white creep, and he says, oh, that's just my boyfriend, oh, we do this all the time. The kid is young. They didn't even run his ID. The cops didn't even bother to look at the kid. They didn't even do a quality of care look on the kid. They didn't even, had they just looked, they would have seen there was something clearly wrong, and the cops didn't do that. And they literally ushered the kid back into the apartment to die in the hands of this monster, the cops. Had that kid been white, had Dahmer been black, it would have been a different story. But because Dahmer was white and the kid was a person of color, they didn't care. They just looked at it and just dismissed it as two people who had an argument, and they were just reuniting them. And that's sad, and that's disgusting. And that's the police, Milwaukee police, who did that. It was disgusting. And they made jokes about it on their intercom. It was horrible. And the kid ended up getting killed by this creep job. And it was so sad. What this series on Netflix shows, and what critics are afraid to say, what critics are afraid to say when they fully evaluate a show of this nature, they're afraid to say that this is an indictment on America and the racism that America has for the black man, against the black man, the black people in America, especially in the inner city. So many things went wrong because of racism. So many black lives could have been saved if the cops in Milwaukee had did their job. But it didn't happen. Those victims, may God rest their souls. Jesse Jackson came to town. I didn't even know about this. Jesse Jackson came to Milwaukee. I know Jesse Jackson must have been shocked when he had to see this event transpire in front of his eyes. This monster, this white monster, killing and eating black males, black gay males, people of color males. It was shocking. Reverend Jackson faced guys like Bull Connor and his pit bulls in the 60s. He was there when Dr. King was assassinated. He was there fighting for civil rights. He dealt with the white man and all his evil tactics. But when he came down to Milwaukee, he never thought he would deal with this type of white devil before in his life. It was horrible. It was dreadful. And he said, I'm going to fight for the gay, black people of color in Milwaukee who were victims of this monster, this predatory monster of Dahmer. And he fought. He made sure those 2 cops got fired. But what's bad was a judge reinstated them, and actually one of them became a president of the union. It was sad. It was just sad. It was just, it almost said it at that point that black lives really didn't matter. Even though they gave that creep job 15 life sentences, it was just like, the whole scene leading up to it which could have been avoided. It really showed in America, in that American city, that black lives did not matter at all. People of color lives didn't matter at all. And that's what happened. That's what the show really focused on. If you really pay attention to it, it was an indictment of America's racism towards people of color, particularly black folks in America, and particularly in the inner city. Mr. Scarver, who's serving multiple life sentences in prison right now, basically what he did in terms of getting into prison is heinous, which he deserves a sentence for. But once in prison, and when he did the research and he did what he needed to do, and he kill Dahmer, it needed to be done, because Dahmer was a sick bastard. And the fact that he got life in prison and being baptized was wrong. It was wrong on so many levels. And the fans that kept sending him letters and sending him money, disgusting. So what Mr. Scarver did was a service to the victims, to the service to the people who want decency. What Mr. Scarver did is he took him out, and he sent that disgusting devil back to hell where he belongs. Thank you, Mr. Scarver, for your service. Overall, this series has really shown, and things have happened since 1994 in many other parts of America. Black lives are starting to matter, but we have a lot of work to do. There's too much work that needs to be done to make sure that all black lives matter and we're fully represented, because that's what we need. That is what will fix the race relations between people of color and white folks in America. We just need to be respected and listened to, because that's the only way. When I watched that series, I didn't care about the monster. I thought he was a sick bastard. But what made me mad and what it showed was the visceral racism towards people of color. And I'm glad, and I hope they look at this as a presentation to see if we can fix race relations in America, because that's what needs to happen. It doesn't matter if we had a first black president. We need more, but we also need to be heard. And I hope you listen to this podcast on this review about the Dahmer series on Netflix. It was a series that made me extremely uncomfortable when I watched it. I didn't enjoy watching it. I felt it was a level of exploitation, and I did not like it at all. But I watched it, and I came up with this review from this point of view. Thank you for listening to this episode on the BKJmacTV podcast experience. This was episode 19, season 2. I need to take a moment and send my prayers and my condolences to the victims of that monster. May God rest their souls in heaven. Amen. Peace.